Alex Hormozi is arguably the biggest business creator on the internet, and I think one of his biggest skills is actually branding and understanding how to build a brand that naturally attracts the right people, aka your ideal customers. Because as a business creator, that's what we all want. And that's why Hormozi's content didn't just get millions of views, but it also built one of the biggest businesses in the creator space. And I truly think that was only because he understands branding and human psychology so deep. Now, if you're watching me for the first time, my name is Faiz and I help coaches and creators scale their offers. And before this offer and the whole channel, I ran my own content and branding agency, where I spent a year and a half studying different creators' branding strategies, specifically Hormozi strategies, and tested a lot of his strategies myself. In this video, I'm going to be breaking down the strategies that made the biggest impact for us, why they actually work, and how you can apply them to your own personal brand. Not only to grow an audience, but consistently attract your ideal clients as well. And I want to start the video with what branding actually is, because I think a lot of branding advices online is useless because of how descriptive they are. Most people still think that branding is about logos and fonts, and it's all basically BS, because branding is what you make the logo stands for. It's the story and the meaning you give to your name and your logo. Like Nike has no meaning, but the brand and the products gives it meaning. So Hormozi's definition is that branding is just a deliberate pairing of your thing with an outcome that people already want, because that's of course how you create desire for your products. And that is the whole concept of branding. For example, Coca-Cola, right? You drink it, you feel refreshed, and that feeling gets connected with the can. So the next time you want that feeling, you reach for the Coke. Like nobody really made you sit down and explain the whole brand values to you or did anything else. Your brain just connected the dots itself. Action to product to the outcome. And that cycle repeated over and over until it became a habit. So for your audience, the more value you provide and the more micro problems you solve for your ICP, and every time you help them achieve a micro win, they connect the outcome with you. And if you do this enough times, they will eventually start liking you enough to actually pay you thousands of dollars for your main core transformation that your product offers. And after enough required touch points, which according to Google's research, there are 7-11-4 rule, it takes about 7 hours of content across 11 different touch points in 4 different locations to turn a stranger into a buyer. And those 11 different touch points without any harm attached to them is how you build a positive perception of your brand in your ICP's mind. That is the entire mechanism. It's all about association. If I advise you something right now and you listen to it and you do as I say and a good thing happens as a result, you're gonna associate that good thing with the source, aka me. And this is why I think most creators are actually bad at branding even when they are good at making content, because they are not being conscious about what they are pairing themselves with. And let's just take that same example and apply it to a high ticket fitness offer, right? Let's just say that you sell a $5,000 body transformation program, right? You don't start by pitching the program because the market don't value it right now. So you start with their problems. You start with making them realize why they even feel tired or why they even feel out of shape, right? Those are the problems that they are already facing and they hate already. When you help them solve every one of those problems, that is a micro win. That's a positive interaction with your brand. And by the time you actually introduce your $5,000 program, and because your advice have been working out for so long, the time you actually introduce your $5,000 program, they know that that shit's gonna work as well. So the second thing you need to understand is the difference between branding and advertising. And if I keep it really simple, advertising is literally, did people find out about you? And branding is, did they like what they found? And a lot of times people absolutely win one and completely lose the other one. Like we have Pepsi's Kendall Jenner ad in 2017. They got millions of views and dominated headlines around the world. So from an advertising standpoint, it worked and everyone knew about it, but people really hated the message, and as a result it damaged the brand. So if your content is not converting, you need to find out which problem you actually have before you try and solve it. And in most cases it's always about branding problem, and that's why I can get clients with 75 subscribers, but you can't, even with a way bigger audience, right? And it's only because I know and I understand what my ideal client need to consume to actually see why they need my help so bad. So if people are seeing your stuff but not buying, that's a branding problem. You're getting views, so you're reaching people, but you're probably pairing yourself with the wrong outcomes in their head. They don't see you as the person who solves their exact problems. But if literally nobody's seeing your stuff, that's not a branding problem, of course. That's an advertising problem, and that's a reach problem. Like there's no amount of authenticity that can get you a client if no one's watching you, of course. You can be the most likable person on the internet and it just won't matter because nobody's seeing your content in the first place. You just need to get in front of the right people first. And every time I say a strong brand, I don't mean having a lot of followers, which is, to be honest, is the biggest mistake that I see people make. Because like I always say, as a high-ticket business owner, you don't need a lot of views. You don't need a big following. And there are literally just 3 things that you need to look at to measure how strong your brand is. There's influence, so does seeing your content change anyone's behavior? Then there's direction, which means does it move them towards you or away from you? Then there's reach, so how many of the right people does this happen to? All of these 3 things move independently on their own, right? Which is one of the most important part about it. Like your parents, for example, they have insane influence and direction over you and basically 0 reach, because they and their message only affects you and maybe a handful of other people. That's it. Which also proves that reach is not the goal. Reach is never the goal. Reach is literally just a multiplier on something that has to exist in the first place. And that's why chasing a lot of views is just the worst thing you can do, because high reach with weak influence is going to do literally nothing. You reached 1 million people and changed nothing in their behavior. Like, congratulations, you made nothing happen 1 million times. So you need to stop just looking at your views and you need to ask 3 questions. Did this content change anyone's behavior? And on number 2, which exact direction did it move them? And then at the very end, how many people did it reach? Reach is literally the least useful number of all of these 3, and almost everyone checks it the first. And now I'm just going to go through the 6 big shifts that Hormozi made in the last 2 or 3 years, because they are all super useful. But after all of these 6, you'll most definitely notice that they are all solving the same core problem that always comes up when building a brand to sell something high ticket. And I know this because I've seen this across a lot of different brands that we have worked with you, and which is why we eventually build a system to fight the main core problem, which is the exact system that I'll get back to once I explain all of these 6 big shifts. So the very first change was definitely to go from entertainment plus educational content to only making educational content, because you realize one thing: entertainment viewers want more entertainment and educational viewers want more education, and the crossover between these 2 is literally nothing. So Hormozi himself completely stopped trying to serve both of them and went all in on educational content, because that's who actually buys. His videos about fitness and, you know, gym and diet was getting a lot of views but bringing in absolutely zero customers, because that's a different audience that builds a different perception even in his own ICP's mind. So he started taking interactions and touch points very seriously. And the second lesson was to stop making content for you and start making content for your target audience. Basically, the story behind it was that Hormozi said one of his friends told him that I haven't really been watching your content lately, right? It just doesn't resonate with me anymore. And that friend was literally like his ideal customer. He was a business owner doing like $10 million. And the reason was pretty simple. Over time, his team started making content that they liked or that would go, you know, drive more attention instead of the content that the ideal clients actually wanted. And as soon as he realized it, the very first thing that changed was making thumbnail a lot more clear. And the second big thing that changed was how they were structuring their intros using 3P formula, which is proof, promise, and plan. Proof is literally why should I listen to you. Promise in the intro is what am I actually going to get from this video. Plan is how you are going to get me there. So like entertainment content needs to actually confirm the thumbnail. Like if Mr. Beast promises that he's going to smash a Lamborghini in the thumbnail, he needs to show people that he's actually about to do it. He needs to show them that it's an actual working Lamborghini and how exactly he's going to smash it. But educational intros are different. They need to build credibility first. People in the very start need a reason to believe you're worth listening to. And that's why copying entertainment style intros for educational content rarely ever works, because they're solving completely different trust problems. And one thing that we have found working even better is to not treat proof, promise, plan formula as like a fixed order. Start with whatever removes the biggest friction for your audience. If people already trust you but don't know what they're gonna get, I would start with promise and then have the proof and then the plan. But if you're introducing a new idea and, you know, talking to unaware people who don't really know you, I would start with the proof. And if the topic feels complicated, I would start with the plan, so people know where you're taking them before you get into the details. So you need to be answering the biggest question in the viewer's mind as early as possible and remove any possible reason for them to leave the video. The third shift was to go from wide to narrow, and what that basically means is that only around 9% of the people owns a business. And that means if you make content about business, you are obviously talking to a much smaller group of people than someone talking about, you know, fitness or relationship, whatever. And the only reason I mention it is because almost everyone feels qualified to talk on fitness or relationships, because literally everyone has a body, so they feel qualified talking about physique and their fitness. And almost everyone's been in a relationship as well, so if everyone in the world feels qualified to talk on these topics, you're not just competing with like your competition in the market, you're competing literally with everyone's opinion. But business is different, and that's why I think just niching down is not a good advice. Like you shouldn't be thinking to find the smallest niche possible, but it's to actually find space where you know a lot more than the average person does, and that's where your content naturally becomes more valuable, because now you're talking about things that people only get from their own experiences. So I need you to be thinking from that perspective. Where do I have the biggest knowledge advantage in the whole market and in the whole journey? and that's usually where your best content comes from. And the next shift was to stop checking views and start paying attention to RPM. RPM stands for revenue per thousand views, and in simple terms, it just tells you how valuable your audience is to advertisers in your market. Because advertisers and the people with paid marketing pay a lot more to get to people who actually have money and high buying intent. Instead of caring about views, you need to be looking at the quality of the views. And RPM, because it's revenue per thousand views, it gives you like faster feedback, and you get an early signal if you're attracting the right people. So you can double down on those same marketing angles and content ideas that attract the people that buy from you. Again, at the end of the day, you should be paying attention to both of these, quality and quantity, because if you only chase one, let's just say quantity, you end up making clickbait content to attract more and more viewers. And if you only focus on quality but nobody sees it, you don't get enough data to actually improve. So you need to be focusing on both of these. The fifth change that Hormozi made was to optimize for content preference. Basically, people don't just have platform preferences, they have content preferences as well. Someone who follows a 30-second clip will usually keep consuming the 30-second clips, but someone who finds you through long form content is far more likely to keep watching long form content. And one thing that like I've seen working a lot is that long form content attracts like a lot more buyers than short form content, and it's pretty obvious why that's the case. And if you're talking about Hormozi, his brand is just too big that he is on all of these different platforms. He's on X, he's on YouTube for long form content, he's also doing live now on Instagram and TikTok, everywhere, right? Because of his brand. But if you're just starting out, you should be focusing on long form content the first. Like myself personally, I stopped making short form content even though it was getting a lot more views. Like my average views on my shorts was like 2k, 3k, but I stopped making it because I knew that long form content attracts the actual buyers, and that's where I should be putting my attention to, because the more attention someone is willing to invest, the more likely they are to make a bigger commitment, even when it comes to money. And long form content is just what gets me the most educated buyers for me, for my offer. And the next shift was to treat every single viewer as a stranger. And what that means is that the faster you grow, the less of your new audience has seen your old content. So every new follower is missing all the previous context, and that's why his content never have like, you know, I said that, and like, you know, my XYZ formula. He always explains the formula there. So he started treating every single piece of his content like it's someone's first impression. And another thing that I personally do as well is have like 1 or 2 lines for the things that you're trying to re-mention in a new video, so every new viewer at least have the foundational background of the concept. And then the SPCL method is also one of the most useful things that I learned, and one of the most impactful things as well to build influence that I learned from Hormozi, of course. And SPCL basically means status, power, credibility, and likeness. Status is when you control something that people want. Power comes from, you know, I told you X happened, so now you're more likely to listen to my next thing. Credibility is third person validation, and that's why he paid these judges to show up at his book launch, because outsider validation is what like max out your credibility. And then likeness, do they relate to you as a creator? Do they look like you, talk like you, or share the same values as you? For example, parents have insane influence over you because they usually have all 4 of these. They control resources, so a lot of status. They have spent years proving like they know what they are talking about, and so everything that they ask you not to do lead to a good outcome. So they have a lot of power. They are also your first authority figure in your life, and they are the people that you naturally relate to the most, so you're like them as well. And that's why they have so much influence over their kids. And that right there, SPCL, is exactly how any high influence relationship gets built. Whether it's a parent, a religion, a cult leader, a national brand, a creator, whatever, that's just the foundation of influence. And when I started using it, the biggest lesson for me was not to rush anything, because if you don't have status yet, you maybe don't have enough track record, you shouldn't be pretending it, or you shouldn't be faking it. You can use like other strategies like borrow credibility. I was borrowing authority with the breakdown videos, right? And then you build power by being right over and over again. And every time you make a prediction that comes true or give advice that works, people trust your next point a little more. So you can show expertise while also not being fake about anything. And now if you look at all of these 6 different things, you'll understand that all of these things, if you wouldn't change it, it would lead to one core problem, which is not attracting your ideal customer. Like I said, as a business owner, that's what we all want. We want to be constantly attracting the right people, so we don't just get views but also get clients. And that was one thing that I saw my clients going through again and again, and that's why we built a system for it. We basically take every single interaction that you have had with your ideal client, can be sales call, coaching call, DM conversation, like however you might interact with your clients, right? So we take all of that data and feed it into an AI system, and we basically train a chatbot that acts like your ideal customer profile. So you could ask it literally anything related to your content, related to your targeting, or what marketing angles are actually working, what attracts the actual client. So not attracting your ICP never becomes a problem again. And it's also something that literally every every business creator goes through, and that's why we offer free audit sessions as well, so we could suggest you what exactly you're doing wrong and where exactly you are missing your ideal clients and what exactly you need to change to grow your brand and your business. Again, it's completely free, so make sure you book your audit session as soon as possible using the first link in the description. Now, I personally also wanted to mention a couple of things that I learned from running my own branding agency, just because we are talking about building a brand. First tip from my side was definitely to stack more skills, because the more skills you have, the more valuable your content becomes. Like, Hormozi isn't just good at making content, he understands business, marketing, psychology, storytelling, communication, and everything else, and that's why he can create valuable ideas from all of these different angles. Second tip was definitely to tell stories, not just lessons and what the stories actually taught you, but start with actual stories, because literally anyone can tell people what to do, but people believe you when you show them the experience that taught you that, because it's literally like you putting your audience in your shoe, and stories make people follow your journey and eventually reach the same conclusion as you and agree with you and agree with whatever you believe to be true. Number 3 was that your content can never outgrow your knowledge. If you stop learning, you stop having valuable things to share. Most people think they have content problem, but they actually have a knowledge problem. Like, a lot of people that I know have a knowledge problem. They either don't have enough knowledge or they don't know how to explain what they know simply enough. So the cycle is literally simple: do more, learn more, teach more, and just repeat. And also, don't be afraid to have strong opinions. You're gonna never have people agree with everything that you say, and so the point is just to have your opinions and have the right people behind you. But again, your opinions need to connect with your bigger mechanism, so they build belief in your offer and sell your audience on your offer. Once again, I offer free audit session. You can book your free audit session using the first link in the description. And if this video was helpful, make sure to like the video and subscribe to the channel, and I'll see you in the next one. Peace.